On Monday, July 26, Biden is set to meet the Iraqi Prime Minister Al-Kadhimi to discuss the strategic relations between the two countries. This will be the second meeting for Al-Kadhimi to meet an American president to discuss the strategic relations between the two countries. The first meeting, Al-Kadhimi met with Trump. Trump foreign policy did not negotiate with the Iraqi Armed Popular Mobilization Forces, PDF. Instead, he used force and violence. The Iraqi Armed Popular Mobilization, PDF, is a branch within the Iraqi military. Under the Iraqi constitution, this branch answers directly to the Prime Minister. Under the pretext that the Iraqi Armed Popular Mobilization Forces take their orders directly from Iran and that they are attacking the American military and embassies, last year Trump ordered the assassination of the leader of the Iraqi Armed Popular Mobilization Forces in the middle of Baghdad. The meeting on Monday with Biden will be very different from the meeting he had with Trump. Biden has a history of supporting a free Iraq. He has supported Bush's decision in removing Saddam Hussein. As vice president under Obama, he strategically withdrew the American military out of Iraq. One of the main things that Al-Kadhimi will discuss with Biden is the American military presence in Iraq. Whether the American military will stay or withdraw out of Iraq. The security issue in Iraq in regard to ISIS. The electricity issue in Iraq. The security cooperations between the two countries. The Iraqi elections. The economic and agricultural cooperations. The education and cultural exchange. This meeting will be interesting because on the other side of the world, Iran is welcoming a new president, Ebrahim Raisi, who is affiliated with the hardliners in Iran. The strength and weakness that will come out of this visit. A winning point for Al-Kadhimi if he can convince Biden to withdraw the American military out of Iraq. The Iranians see the American military presence in Iraq a direct threat to Iran. The American military withdrawal out of Iraq will allow Al-Kadhimi to negotiate with Iran and the Iraqi Armed Popular Mobilization Forces, PDF. The US-Iran nuclear agreement will give the negotiation strength for Al-Kadhimi and success. The real question is, will Al-Kadhimi be able to convince Biden to withdraw the American military out of Iraq? The Republican Party refuses to withdraw out of Iraq under the pressure and presence of the Iraqi Armed Popular Mobilization Forces, PDF. The Republican Party sees the withdrawal as a defeat for America in the region. Either way, the fact is that Biden controls most of the Congress. He has the final say if he decides to withdraw the American military out of Iraq. There are some Shia political factions that want the American military to stay, so that Iraq is not left in the control of the armed Shia factions. Most Sunnis and Kurds in Iraq also want the US military to stay. Only Iran and its supporters from the armed Shia factions in Iraq want the American military to withdraw from Iraq. The real outcome to expect is there will be no withdrawal of the American military, but rather the military forces in the region will be repositioned and relocated, and this will preserve the American dignity and interest in the Middle East, and most and above all, preserve the security of Israel. One of the main reasons we have an electric problem in Iraq today is that Trump refused to contract with the German company Siemens, which was signed and contracted by former Prime Minister Abdel Mahdi, whose cost amount to $14 billion, and transferred it to General Electric Company, which is an American company. The German company had generators that worked on diesel, which is a natural resource in Iraq. The American company electric generators work on gas that has to be imported from out of Iraq. The Iraqi government major mistake is that it imports gas as fuel for the electric stations, and instead of using Iraq natural resources such as cheap and available diesel and black oil. The current electric stations work on gas, and that gas has to be imported from Iran. The problem is that Iran is under sanctions, and Iraq is not allowed to import this gas from it. This summer in Iraq, the temperatures is reaching heat of half boiling point. America gave the Iraqi government the exception for a period of 3 months to deal with Iran and import gas from it. This does not solve the electricity problem. The country suffers an electricity crisis. The recent protests in Iraq over the electricity almost caused the collapse of the al-Qadami president. The Iraqi election cannot take place in the presence of uncontrolled weapons. Without electricity and the uncontrolled security situation in Iraq, there will be no investments in the country, and unemployment will increase. This will lead to Iraq becoming a hotbed of terrorism and organized crime, and could possibly see thousands of Iraqis flooding the doors of embassies seeking asylum. The real solution is for the Iraqis to go to the polls to elect a government under international supervision that is free of fraud. If this does not happen, the alternative is for Iraq to go into a grinding civil war, allowing the country to be ruled by militias and terrorism. The outcome depends on the wisdom of President Biden and the understanding he can reach in the region. This can determine peace or war and a stabilized Iraq.